When I first started dating, I genuinely thought that I just needed to put myself out there and the rest will kind of figure itself out. I will meet someone, we'll fall in love, and that would just be that. And honestly, that's the story I grew up expecting from watching all of the rom-com movies of my era. Like, you know, the ones like 13 Going 30, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, The Princess Diaries, and literally every Disney movie ever made. So all I wanted was to one day be that girl. To be the one who gets swept off her feet, who gets chosen, and she lives a happily ever after. So at 22, I decided, you know what, it's my turn. It's my time to shine, and I just needed to show up and the guy will take care of the rest. But what I quickly found out when I actually started dating was that it doesn't really work like that. Healthy, loving relationships apparently don't just happen to you. You don't just stumble into the right person by accident or by luck. And when I realized that, I had two choices. I could stay in the victim mode where I was just wondering, why is this happening to me? Why is it so much easier for everyone else? Why does everyone else get to have the romantic movie-like story and I don't? Or I could do something about it. So I decided to do something about it. I started doing the work. I read all of the books, I watched all of the videos, I went deep into the attachment styles, understanding myself and all of that. And honestly, I thought while I was doing that was it, that was the work and that was enough. But here's the thing, most people who think they are healed in love, they're not. And I say that because I was one of them. I knew all of the right words. I knew about boundaries, I knew about self-worth, I knew about green flags, red flags, inner child work, I knew about everything. I could honestly so easily pass a quiz on emotional intelligence, but I was still choosing the same people. I was still spiraling over the same old things. I was still looking for proof of my own value in all of the wrong places, in all of the wrong people. And that's when I realized there is a real difference between understanding healing on an intellectual level and actually living it and actually embodying it and knowing it on a physical level. And that difference, that gap has a name, and it's called being secure. And today I'm going to walk you through exactly what that means and the 10 rules that I figured out that a secure person in love lives by. So you can figure out honestly where you actually stand right now and what is the place that you want to get. Hi guys, I'm Adriana and welcome back to my channel where I talk about how to become secure in love by firstly becoming secure in yourself. So let's get into today's video. Now, a lot of people misunderstand what a secure person actually is. Most people think that it means being unbothered, but that actually is just avoidance with a very good PR. Or they think that it means I don't need anyone, but that is armor and not strength. Or they think that it just means being healed. But using the word healed is very vague and anyone can say that. A secure person is something more specific. It is someone who has done the real internal work and it has changed the way that they love, it has changed the way that they hold their limits and the way that they see themselves when absolutely no one is watching and when absolutely no one is confirming that. So what does that actually look like? So what I've realized from my experience is that becoming a secure person is becoming someone who has stopped looking for themselves in other people. You get to become someone that is not defined by who chooses you, isn't defined by how a conversation went or whether someone texted you back. They are someone that they have built something solid on the inside, and it's something that no relationship and no relationship outcome can come and take it away from you. And from that place, they learn and they get to love freely. They get to hold their standards, they get to hold their boundaries, and they move through the world without needing constant proof that they are enough, that they are valuable, that they are worth of love and receiving love. And the most important thing to understand is that this is not a personality type. It's not something that you are born with and some people are lucky to have it and some people just don't. It's literally a way of being that you build, and it's something that you get to build slowly slowly, intentionally, and deliberately from the inside out. And that it shows up not in what you say about yourself and what you say you're gonna do in your relationships, but it actually shows in what you do, how you behave when love and relationships and big emotions are testing you, when love gets complicated, when feelings get big, and when staying will honestly be easier than living. And from my experience, it comes down to 10 things. So let's go into the rules that I, from experience, learned that a secure person lives by. Rule number 1 is that their emotional stability is an inside job. But what I mean by that, a secure person doesn't depend on other people to regulate them. So their sense of calmness, their sense of peace, and their sense of internal emotional stability doesn't come from the outside, doesn't depend from the outside. And this is honestly the foundation, and everything else I'm going to tell you is going to sit on top of this one. So if this one doesn't exist, anything else that you add is just simply going to crumble. So a secure person is not at the mercy of someone else's behavior. They don't wake up and they immediately start scanning for signals for what they are worth. Did that person text them? Did this person's tone change? Does that person seem distant today? And then they let these answers decide how they will feel about themselves. That cycle of reading the room constantly and trying to figure out how you're supposed to feel is honestly one of the most exhausting and the most draining things that you can do. But most of us, when we are in this cycle, we are doing it without ever realizing that we're doing it, and without ever realizing how much energy this is draining us. So a secure person has been able to build an internal foundation that is genuinely theirs. It is not borrowed from a relationship, from another person, or from anyone else, and is not dependent on being chosen. It comes from all of that unglamorous and hard work of actually getting to know yourself, getting to know what you value, what you need, what you believe about yourself when no one else is yet affirming it. And that foundation that you build about yourself is what allows you to stay calm when things with relationships start to feel uncertain. And it's not because you don't care anymore, but it's because you no longer outsource your sense of self to the outcome of that relationship. You don't attach your sense of self to how that person or how that relationship is working. You don't take it personally as something that means something about yourself. If your mood lives and dies by someone else's behavior right now, you get to see that as information and not as judgment towards yourself, but just as information about where you stand and where you still have things to work on. Rule number 2 is that they have done the actual inner work and not just the language of it. I know this one might sting a bit, but just bear with me. I understand that we live in an era where a lot of psychological language is everywhere. So there are a lot of videos about attachment styles, nervous system regulation, trauma responses, inner child work. These are the things that I like to speak about, and I like explaining them and raising awareness to people so they can understand that their actions, their behaviors are coming from somewhere and they can be changed and doesn't have to be their whole life. Yes, these are real frameworks and they're genuinely so important to help and raise awareness, but we need to understand there's a version of engaging with all of this that never leaves your head. It's very important that you understand that and you become aware of this as well. You learn the vocabulary, you can identify your patterns perfectly, you can explain exactly why you do what you do, and then you go and you do it anyway. So a secure person is someone that was able to move past that stage, the stage of just learning and accumulating information and knowledge. They didn't just learn about their anxious attachment, but they were able to feel it, to sit with it, to trace it back to where it came from, and then to slowly start to rewire it. And you're able to do it through coaching, through actually choosing differently even when it's very uncomfortable, and through sitting with the anxiety of not chasing after someone and finding out that you actually survived it. And there's really no shortcuts here. Content consumption will never be the same as healing. Just as much as reading will never equal doing the thing. And the difference shows. The difference between these two things shows. Not in what you get to say and what you get to understand intellectually, but in what you do when things get hard. In the way that you embody that truth and understanding through your body language, through your behavior, through your actions. Rule number 3 is that they know how to communicate and they don't perform. So a secure person says what they mean, and they say that directly without hinting at something 16 times and waiting for someone to care enough to notice, without expecting someone to telepathically read their mind. And I know this sounds simple, but it really is not. A lot of people with insecure attachment styles really struggle with this one. And the reason for that is because direct communication asks you to risk something real. It's asking you to say, this hurt me, or I need this. And it's asking you to do that without knowing how the other person will respond and how they will react to that. So it's asking you to name what you need without any guarantee that it will be met. And for a lot of people, that kind of vulnerability feels way more dangerous and way more scary than just going quiet and hoping that the other person will see them and will understand them and that they will love them enough to see through them. But here's what a secure person understands. A secure person gets to understand that unclear communication is not an act of kindness, is not an act of politeness, is simply self-protection dressed up as politeness. So when you drop hints instead of just saying the thing that you want to say, you're simply protecting yourself from the real response and from the real truth of how the other person will respond to that thing that actually really matters to you. And as a result, the relationship pays for that. So a secure person learns to talk about what they need, what isn't working. They know how to say what they want things to look like going forward. And so they do that without any performance, without waiting for that perfect moment, and without making the other person feel like they're being tested. Because they are not. They are simply treating them like an adult they actually respect. They are showing them grace by telling them the truth. And honestly, learning to express yourself freely without any shame and without any guilt, and giving someone else that space and that grace to actually understand you is one of the most freeing things that you can do for yourself and for the other person. You communicate yourself clearly, yes, with the fear and the risk that that person might not meet you the way that you want them, but you give yourself the freedom to express what you want, and you give that person the freedom to show you clearly how much they care for you, how much and how seriously they take you, right? Because once you stop miscommunicating, you start communicating clearly, there's nowhere to hide. There's nothing to say that, oh, they just don't understand it, I am just not good at communicate, so maybe they didn't read it through. Like, once you say it clearly and they actually don't meet you, you actually know at that point how much that person values you, and knowing that can be scarier sometimes. Rule number 4 is that they don't chase what isn't choosing them. And I want to be careful here because I know that this one gets oversimplified. A secure person isn't someone who bails out the moment that things get hard. They understand that relationships take work. They understand that people go through hard seasons, but they have also learned, usually through the hard way, to tell the difference and understand the nuance between someone who is genuinely present but right now they're going through a phase where they're struggling, and someone who is just not that invested and is benefiting from their willingness to keep trying. And they understand that the second one is not something they have to chase or they need to chase to change them and make them become the first one. And they don't do that because they want to play the game and because they're trying to seem less available and so they hook that person, but they do that because they know what it costs them if if they don't stop chasing. So every time they overfunction for someone who is underinvesting, all of the late night texts, the explaining themselves, the shrinking, the convincing, the begging, they are basically making deposits into someone and something that isn't making deposits back, that isn't giving anything back. And they have stopped pretending that they can afford that. A secure person lets people show them who they are, and then they believe them. Rule number 5 is that they love fully without disappearing into it. And this might be the one that I feel most strongly about, because there's this misconception that a secure person is somehow more guarded or is more detached, is less romantic, they don't care, they're not so invested, and that all this inner work turns you into someone cool and unbothered and kind of just closed off. But the truth is that it's the opposite. A secure person is someone that is able to love more deeply than they ever did before. And that is because they are not spending half of their energy managing their relationships anxiety, managing all of the stress, performing or monitoring where they stand and checking in all the time. They get to actually be present. They are able to give love warmly and generously because they are giving it from a place of genuine fullness, because their cup is full, and not from fear that if they stop giving, they will be left. So there's a difference of doing it, of giving love because you have so much that you're overflowing, and giving it from a place of fear that if you don't give that little love that you have to someone, they're going to leave. So what they don't do is that they don't disappear into a relationship. So that means that their identity doesn't dissolve into their relationship. Their friendships don't get quietly cancelled. Their goals don't get shelved. Their sense of self doesn't become entirely about how this one person sees them. They get to love someone deeply and they get to stay themselves. It's these both things at once. And they know that any love that is worth having and any love that is fully healthy and secure will never ask them to choose between these two things. A secure love, a healthy love, will never ask you to lose yourself in order to keep it. And I want to clarify that because there are a lot of anxious attachments that they do that. They go into a relationship and they start dissolving and losing themselves in it. They start crossing their boundaries. They're allowing people to walk over them. They push back a lot of their needs and stuff like that. And when the other person doesn't do the same, doesn't dissolve, doesn't lose themselves into their relationship, they get angry and they get resentful to that person that they don't love them as much as them, because they're not willing to lose themselves in that relationship as much as they're willing to do so. But they don't understand that they do it because they feel like they need to, in order to keep that person and keep that little sense of love, in order for them to have access to it and feel like they are worth loving. They do that because they feel like they need it and they have to, and not because they do that from an overflow of love. You can tell this when you actually go from anxious to secure, that you are no longer willing to lose yourself for a relationship. You understand that, wow, me asking that before from these people was so selfish. Asking that person to completely lose their boundaries, lose themselves in this relationship was actually very selfish of me, and I did it out of my need for their love, and because I didn't have it. I didn't have it on my own, and I needed theirs to prove it to me. Once you become secure, you get to value yourself. You get to value how important it is to have a good relationship and still having yourself in it, because it's so amazing to get to have yourself fully and get to have the relationship without ever having to cross all your boundaries, lose yourself, make all of these sacrifices, and at the end of the day you feel like you don't know who you've become. It's so much more gratifying to end up in a relationship where you feel like you become more of yourself, because that person gets to see the real you, and they allow you to be seen as who you truly are, and they want you and that version of you to flourish and grow even more. Rule number 6 is that a secure person holds their standards, especially when it's inconvenient. The thing about standards is that they're very easy when everyone is on their best behavior. The real test though is when someone you actually like shows you something that you said that you wouldn't accept anymore. And that is the moment that a secure person is defined. A secure person has done the work of knowing what they actually need. They don't know some abstract list, but they understand they have a list built from their real experiences and the lessons they learned from those experiences about what they want and what they need. So from paying attention to what drains them, what disrespects them, what they have over-explained away before, and they can't just keep living with it. They have learned and they now know their non-negotiables with real specificity. And so when someone doesn't meet them, no matter how charming that person is, even if that person is someone that they're genuinely so attracted to, even if that someone is someone that takes 9 out of the 10 things that they say they want, they don't convince themselves that that one thing doesn't matter, because they know that they have been there before, and they know that the thing that they minimize at the beginning is going to become the thing that you're going to resent in the end. And so they know to hold that standard, to hold every single one of their standards. And they don't do it rigidly, they don't do it without any compassion, but they do it firmly and out of self-respect, because they know that lowering the bar in order to keep someone isn't actually allowing them to keep them, but it's just postponing a very painful exit. And while at the same time you're just slowly losing pieces of yourself along the way, because you have disrespected yourself again by doing the thing that you said you wouldn't do. Rule number 7 is that they feel everything, they're just not governed by it. And I want you to understand that security is not the absence of any big emotions and any big feelings. And I want to be really clear about this, because I think getting this wrong can do a lot of damage. A secure person gets jealous sometimes, they get anxious, they get hurt, they have their moments of self-doubt, of self-consciousness. They are not perfect, they're not a monk. They are a human being with their own nervous system and their own real feelings. The difference is what they do with those feelings. They don't repress them to seem easy, they don't perform them to get a reaction out of someone, and they don't make any major relationship decisions from inside that spiral of all of those emotions. So they understand that they need to feel the feeling, to take it seriously, and to ask themselves what is actually telling them. And then they respond to that feeling from a grounded place, instead of reacting from a triggered one. And that gap between feeling something and acting on it is one of the most powerful things that a person can build. And it doesn't come naturally. Again, it's not something that you're born with it. It comes from practice, because as humans we have this animal instinct to react, but we need to remind ourselves that we're not animals. We get to act beyond that. So it comes from a lot of practice, from choosing over and over again to slow down instead of react, and to ask why instead of just doing, and to trust that feeling will slowly move through you if you let it. It's very important to remember here that emotions are just like waves. They need to come up, and once you feel them, they're gonna come up and they're gonna go down. But the more you meet them with a wall, they're gonna keep crushing here. But if you let them do their full circle, they're just gonna eventually calm down. Rule number 8 is that a secure person chooses themselves first without any guilt. So a secure person has unlearned the idea that putting themselves first is selfish, that taking up space is too much, that having needs makes them difficult. They learn to prioritize their own health, meaning their sleep, their mental state, the things that keep them feeling like themselves. And they know to invest in their own growth without waiting for permission or without waiting for a partner to do it alongside them. So they They've learned to end conversations that leave them feeling worse and leave them feeling drained, more drained than when they started them. They learn to leave situations that consistently cost them their peace, even when it's inconvenient, even when the other person is hurt, and even when staying will honestly be easier. And they do this without the guilt that used to come after, because they have genuinely internalized something that took a long time to understand. They understand that you cannot sustainably give what you haven't given yourself first. And this is the thing where you cannot give from an empty cup. A secure person understands that, and when they know that, they move through the world differently. They know that if they don't focus on watering their garden first and filling their cup first, they will be left with nothing for themselves and for the other person. So they're doing no one any favor by betraying themselves, by overgiving themselves, because in the end, the more you keep yourself alive and in your best shape, in your best mental shape, emotional shape, you it's like keeping a tree alive. When you keep a tree alive, it is able to grow and to create fruit and to benefit the community, to benefit the people around it. When a tree becomes dry and overgives, he's I don't know if this is a good example, but when you overgive, you become something that then is not of any use. You kill yourself, and therefore you're no longer of any use to anyone else either. So I beg of you to understand the difference and the importance of always putting yourself first and have zero guilt for doing that. Rule number 9 is that a secure person is not afraid of being alone. And oh my god, this one is huge. This one is so crucial. And I feel like this one is not talked about enough, about how huge and important it is. So much of what it looks like poor romantic choices, like staying too long, accepting less than what you deserve, tolerating inconsistencies, and so on, isn't really about the other person and accepting the other person and what they do to you. But it more has to do with the fear, or may I say the terror, of being alone. The fear that alone means unwanted, that being alone means something is wrong with you, that alone is a state to escape as fast as possible at whatever cost. So a secure person is a person that has made peace with solitude, and not because they don't want love and they don't want people around them and they feel like they don't need anyone. They do, and they want that deeply, but they do that because they have learned to genuinely be okay in their own company. They have a relationship with themselves first that isn't painful to sit inside with, but it's actually feeling so peaceful and so safe and so secure there that they're not willing to allow to bring anyone in their life that isn't going to match that level of peace and security and safety that they feel with themselves. So they have built a life that they don't need to escape from, and literally that changes everything. So when you are not running from being alone, you stop running also towards the wrong people. You stop accepting all of the bare minimum behavior because it's at least something. You stop convincing yourself that a half-present person is better than no one. You learn that you can wait, and you are not willing to compromise on the person that you put and you allow to come into your life. You get to be discerning. You get to choose slowly and intentionally, because you're not desperate for anyone to be in your life. You understand the value of yourself and your life, and you don't just allow anyone to just come into it and do whatever they want with it. So solitude stops being something that happens to you, and it becomes something that you can actually choose, and that is real freedom. Getting to know yourself so fully and enjoying your company in such a level that you truly feel like so good with being yourself, it gives you the most freedom. And when you go into that state, that's when you choose the highest quality of people, because you don't choose them because you need them to fill in a gap, but you choose them because they bring something into your life, and not because they have something that you don't have, but because they make your life, it's a plus, it's an addition. It's like they add something like to your life, but they don't complete you. You're already complete, you're already fulfilled, you're already whole, and you know that even if that person leaves, you're going to be okay, you're going to be just fine on your own. And is this like difference between understanding being over independent as an armor and as a protection to being vulnerable and actually being independent because you know the value of yourself and that you're not willing to just let anyone come in your life and just to be in it so you are not alone and society doesn't perceive you as unwanted. You will rather sit with that discomfort of being perceived as unwanted rather than being with someone that doesn't fully respect you and see your value. And rule number 10 is that a secure person, they are always quietly becoming more themselves. A secure person is not a finished product. It's not something that I want you to think that, oh, I need to become that and then it's done. They didn't just arrive somewhere and then they stop growing, they stop evolving. They are in a constant committed relationship with their own growth, with their own transformation, and not from a place, oh, I'm broken and I need to keep fixing me, but from a genuine curiosity about who they are and who they are becoming, because they value themselves so much, they see how inherently worthy they are, that they keep wanting more for themselves, not because they feel like they are missing something, but because they want to keep evolving as a person. So they're people that they read, they reflect, they go back to therapy when they need to, and not just when they are in a crisis. They pay attention to their patterns, they notice when they have drifted from themselves, and they find their way back without making a whole drama about it. So they are honest to themselves, and they don't do it with being harsh and being perfectionistic, but they do it with clarity. And honestly, this is probably what makes them the most magnetic, and not just their confidence in themselves, but not just their standards, not even the way that they love and how much they're able to genuinely deeply love someone. It's that they are genuinely actively becoming something. There is a depth to them that doesn't run out. It's a person of so much value that they understand their value and how they deserve to keep evolving, and that gets mirrored and reflected back to them by people who also get to see their value, and they get to understand, wow, like this is an amazing person to have around. The people in their life, romantic or otherwise, can't feel that, and of course they get magnetized and they get drawn to them. So what is a secure person? They are not a type, they're not an aesthetic, they're not a personality, they are not a checklist that you get to complete and then you frame on your wall, but they are what happens when someone stops looking for themselves in other people and instead they start building themselves from inside themselves, from the inside out. And when they stop measuring their worth by who wants them and they start measuring it by who they are, when no one is watching, when no one is confirming, when no one is telling them that they are worth it yet, when they decide for their own that they are inherently worthy, they're inherently valuable, and they give themselves everything that they ask for from another person. When they start to learn that the love is not supposed to feel like a performance, doesn't feel like a test or a slow erosion of yourself, they are a person that they are soft, but at the same time they are solid. They are open and they are rooted. They get to heal from everything that happened to them without becoming hard. They are not the person who never gets hurt, but they are the person who knows with absolute certainty that even if they do get hurt, they will be okay. They have that innate trust in themselves, they have that faith in themselves and in the universe that no matter what happens, it happens for them and not to them. They know that they will always be able to come back to themselves, and that is not a scary place to be. And that no matter what happens, they are always going to be alright. And that is a secure person. And if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my god, that is exactly what I want for myself, that is precisely everything that I need to be, I just want you to know that this is possible for you, and I know that you can get there because I was where you are now, and I really deeply wanted to become that secure, grounded version of myself. and I did it. And I know, not just from myself, but from the experiences of my clients, that this is possible. So if in case you need any help or any guidance on how to do this, you can always contact me on my Instagram, and yeah, I would love to see how I can help you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate you for being here, and I will see you on the next one.